Thank you so much for coming. This has been really fascinating. My question has to do with your comments on ethical identity and freedom. So firstly, I'm curious as to, I guess just a question of clarification. How would you define that freedom and what constitutes that ethically? And secondly, I would ask, in the pursuit of what seems to be communicated as a sort of universal ethic amid globalization and sort of the emergence of culture and society, do you believe that the sort of finality of ethics really can be a universal ethic? Do you think that that conversation is, do you think that there's common ground for that conversation?
So I would say that when it comes to freedom, and this is why it's exactly my point, we need to start talking about our respective understanding of human beings, the concept of human being. What is for you human being, and when do you start to be a subject? And when do you start to be a free subject? And you will see here that we have different meanings. So, for example, all what we are going through in the educational process is in fact, you are trained and educated to think on your own. So, you know what the French philosopher was saying, I'm not teaching you to think like me, but to think without me, which is exactly what is education. I go along with you, and then you go alone, and you are equipped. You have the means of your own choices. In fact, freedom is to be equipped to use your freedom and to be responsible. So to be responsible to use your freedom, or to deal with your freedom, to make it clear. So I think that this is, on the intellectual ground, something which is very important. On the social ground, this is also something which it's important, is when are you mature? And maturity means that you are free to decide for yourself and to make social, political, and individual choices within the society. This is one dimension which is very important, and this is the way you define this. For example, when you are when you are a citizen, when do you start to vote is where the social or the cultural environment is thinking that this is the time when you can have a personal, individual, and an autonomous understanding of things to take a decision in political terms, which could be different from one society and one culture and another, but at least this is where you have this. Now, in spiritual terms, freedom is very, very deep. All the tradition, all of them, all the spiritual tradition are saying the first jail that you are facing is yourself, is the ego. So this is also something which has to do with freedom. Now, when you know with neurosciences and you follow all what the neurosciences are saying about emotions and the stimulus that are coming from outside and that they are shaping your emotion, very often in the superficial way of dealing with freedom and our emotions, we think that when I do what I feel, I'm free. Or when I react according to what I feel, I'm free. Now we know in psychological terms and in the way our brain is functioning that it's completely true. Emotional reaction are reaction to something which is sent to you. So the stimuli that you have are coming and are very powerful. So, for example, have you read Goleman, Emotional Intelligence? Have you get Goleman, the intellectual intelligence? You have emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. He wrote a book which is quite interesting, and then many were working on this by saying, in one situation, someone who was stealing in the house, he was thinking, this is the last time I'm going to steal, and he went for in a house, and unfortunately he found two women who were there. And he just tied them up and was doing his business. He was to leave, and one of them told him, I'm going to catch you. I remember your face, I'm going to catch you. He just became crazy, and he killed them, both of them, with 35, how do you say that, stabs, so stabbing them 34 times. And in fact, if you look at it, you say, this guy is a savage, it's just unbelievable that he did this. In psychological term, what happened is what he called a coup d'etat. At one point, she said exactly what should not be said at that point. That sent a stimulus that just his mind got a coup d'etat, and he just lost everything. And in fact, at that very point, in neurological term, he was not free. He was facing a coup d'etat. So from outside, you think, oh, just a crazy guy. And in fact, when he was dealing with the psychologist, he said, I became just crazy. What she said was just, I didn't know why I did it. I don't know why I did that. So the point here is, in spiritual term, that's exactly the point, is, in fact, the spiritual term is, you are free when you master your emotion. In consumerist term, you are free when you follow your emotion. What is right? So on ethical terms, you have to question this dimension of freedom, and this is a very deep question. It's not an easy one. When you say, I'm free because I do what I want. Question, are you sure that you want what you want? Are you sure that what you want is what you want? So from where comes to you what you want? How do you build this? How do you decide this? How autonomous? How much autonomy do you have to decide? So this is a very deep question on ethical terms. This is why we have to come together, because it might be that our definition of freedom is something which is important. And once again, in this book, I'm just using the arts as an example. The free artist is the one who is mastering the technique. So it's a very disciplined way. And the Buddhist tradition is very strict on this, very strict on this. You are only going to free yourself from your ego if you go through a very disciplined way to deal with the ego. To free yourself from your ego is to discipline your ego. So freedom is the end of the opposite of freedom, which is discipline, or apparently opposite. And we ourselves as Muslims, sometimes the people are looking at us and say, 5 times a day you pray. It's very, very demanding in the way you have to pray. So it might be that the fact that you are disciplining or doing this with your body and your mind and your heart is the way you are freeing something else. You understand my point? So it's very deep discussion on the ethical terms that we have to find, but at least we have to come to discussion. So I would say in any society in Britain now, let us have a discussion of what do you mean by your freedom? What is your freedom? And there is no freedom without responsibility. There is no freedom without being a subject. If you put yourself as a victim, you lost your freedom. To victimize yourself is the beginning of being alienated. Alienated is to lose your freedom. You don't decide by yourself. And I think just to finish, do I think that we are ready for this? Like this, not. You know, just out of goodwill, let us talk about this. No. But you know why now we should start? Because in fact, you have 2 ways of dealing with ethics. Because you are a principled person, so you are based on principle and you want to engage in this discussion, or because you are facing catastrophes. You know, environment is coming from 2 ways. Ecology is coming from 2 ways. One, because you believe in principles, you have to respect nature. This is what you get, for example, you know, when you go to the Native Americans. The Native Americans had a problem with the colonizer by saying, you think that this country belongs to you, and we think that we belong to the land. The land is free, and we are just here for a while. So the land is free, and we are just occupying the land for a while. And you come with a perception that this land is going to belong to you. So you understand the 2 things? So here in this, it's the very old Native American Indian tradition in America was very much based on a sense of respecting the environment. We have lost this. Why now we are coming back to this discussion? Because we are facing borderline situations where the world, nature is telling us, carry on this way and you are destroying everything. Our societies and our daily life now is more and more populist, more and more racist. Racism is coming again. Can you just imagine that in the greatest or perceived as, the more powerful societies now, when on a TV set you have, and you can see, and this is also happening here in Britain, when a British is killed and when an African or an Arab or a Palestinian or an Indian or an Afghani or anyone who is not one of us is being killed, is as if he or she has less value than us. If this is colonizing our mind, you understand that we are facing a great catastrophe. We are recreating something which has to do with castes among ourselves. So I think that because of this, it's coming back to us, and we have now ethical concerns. So this is where we have to start. Not because of goodwill, I don't think so, but because of bad future. Thank you.